What is up, my beautiful people? My name is G-Vance and welcome back to my channel, where I always have to do the dirty deed of deciding whether an album is worth it or a waste of time. And for this episode, we're looking at a very special project, something that's been a long time coming, a really anticipated album, and that is the new album by Nas entitled King's Disease. The Brooklyn legend is finally back with his 13th studio album. It is a follow-up to the Kanye West produced album known as Nasr. That is a pretty dope fucking album that came out back in 2018, I believe. It is fucking amazing. And this is also a follow-up to, I guess, his most recent compilation album, The Lost Tapes 2, that came out last year. A sequel to the first Lost Tapes album, which just contained a bunch of unreleased tracks from previous projects that Nas has dropped back in the day. And, well, obviously Nas is back at it again with a new album that I'm sure everybody lost their fucking minds once this fucking album dropped. Honestly, the album cover to this album is a symbol and it's sort of like a self-explanatory theme of the kind of impact that Nas had in the rap industry, because he is without a doubt one of the biggest legends ever in the game. You know, even if you're not a fan of hip hop, we all know who Nas is. I mean, come on, the man recently did a live performance with Lil Nas X in the Grammys this year. So obviously, you know, he does have a lot of respect, not only from the OGs, but from a lot of the new school rappers that are sort of like building up the game and sort of like carrying the legacy, or at least attempting to carry the legacy. Nas was a rapper that started off back in the mid 90s, I believe, and I want to say that at that time it was really hard to get into this industry because you know, I feel that there was like a lot of like there was a lot of rappers that, although they were really fucking amazing, they just gave like this overall like negative look on hip hop, and a lot of people were really like finding it hard to like pay their respects to hip hop and just like paid their respects to all these hip hop artists. And so I feel that Nas, you know, came along this industry at a time where a lot of like negativity was going on, and he sort of like showed that not every rapper is just like really like hardcore and, you know, typical like gangbanger that like does drugs and shit. Like he kind of like did like this sort of like positive vibe to hip hop. It's like J. Cole said, you know, Pac was like Jesus and Nas wrote the Bible. You know, that's pretty self-explanatory of a lot of like Nas' career. And, you know, he did end up being one of the greatest rappers of all time back in the day. And you know, to this day, he still has like big like legendary status, and he is the absolute like fucking greatest of all time. You know, in my opinion, he is one of the greatest rappers to ever fucking grab a mic. And he did, you know, live a lot of like great success and glory, you know, back when he was like starting to blow up. So in this album, Nas attempts verse by verse, or in his case, bar by bar, to try to relive that sort of like success and glory that he felt as a young artist, and pretty much give everybody a huge wave of nostalgia, because this is absolutely a fucking like great tribute to like the golden era of hip-hop that a lot of people seem to forget existed back in the day. So Nas teams up with the producer Hit Boy, who has a lot of credits for, I guess, pretty much the whole album on production value. He did fucking amazing. And like I said, they pretty much make an album full of a bunch of nostalgic tracks, as you know, they pretty much try to give pleasure to those who were around to witness that golden era of hip-hop back in the mid 90s, and, you know, a little bit of the late 80s and stuff like that, you know, just to pretty much give like those people like pleasure and sort of like remind them of what hip-hop really is about. And it's even really pleasurable for people like me, I guess, who weren't old enough to try to appreciate that golden era of hip-hop, but still take their time to this day to still appreciate that golden era, because, you know, obviously if it weren't for that era, you know, we wouldn't have all these other like new and talented rappers that, you know, are doing their like sort of like new sounds of hip-hop. You know, it just pretty much is a nice balance of both a lot of like nostalgic shit, but it can also like really be just as good to those who are growing up in modern day times, pretty much. What I really like about the production value is that I really like that it's not so much like in your face hardcore hip hop. You know, like there's not that many hype beats, you know, there's not that many trap beats, you know. I want to say there's maybe like one or two songs where it's that sort of like hardcore hype vibe, but for the most part there's just a lot of these like soulful melodies, you know. It almost sounds like a like a really like great and nostalgic, you know, R&B album, but you know, it's mostly just a bunch of like slow, you know, sort of like acoustic instrumental beats, you know, mixed with somebody who is just rapping over them. You know, it's a really like great combination. It sounds just so fucking beautiful. So obviously Nas is an absolute highlight throughout this whole album, as he once again brings back that godlike lyricism that we all fell in love back in the mid 90s, and he also brings back his classic storytelling, as he pretty much reminisces on, you know, that golden era of hip-hop at the time when he and his colleagues were considered the absolute illest motherfuckers to ever touch a mic, and how they are still able to hold up to those gold standards to this day. Nas keeps it old school by collabing with many legends in the game, including a classic R&B vibe with Charlie Wilson on a song called Car Number 85, and there's even a reunion with his past 90s supergroup The Firm. You know, he finally teams up once again with rappers AZ and Foxy Brown on a track entitled Full Circle, and that one is just a fucking pure wave of nostalgia of, you know, how the fucking rap groups were back in the day. If I'm being honest, I actually wasn't aware that Nas like created a rap group back in the day, so you know, it was like a really like, it was really like great to see him once again teaming up with his past colleagues, and it kind of makes me want to go back to hear some of the Firm's past like albums and songs that they made back in the day, just to see if they're still just as good as this fucking song was, because it was like fucking like surprising for me. And I just really love, like, you know, just hearing that sort of like tag team between Nas and AZ and Foxy Brown. And although it is true that many, you know, old school rappers fail to do this, I do think that Nas adapted to modern day times in a very fantastic way. I mean, he already proved that he is really down with the new school, not only as he made songs with J. Cole and recently with Lil Nas X, but he continues to make a lot of great songs with many like talented rap superstars that we have right now. And I want to talk about a few of my favorite songs with some really great modern artists on this album. Nas teams up with Big Sean and Don Toliver on a track entitled Replace Me, and that one is pretty much like a love ballad song. You know, I know Big Sean is really good with those kind of tracks. You know, he is actually one of my top 10 favorite rappers of all time, and just to once again hear him with somebody like Nas, you know, they actually have done songs back in the day. You know, I know Nas showed up on Big Sean's album Hall of Fame that came out in 2013, I believe. And, you know, they were just on some fucking like, you know, flex and hype shit on that album, and you just see him like reunite again for like so much more like chill shit, is like, you know, was really like great, you know, really like great change of scenery. You know, they both sound so well together. And as for Don Toliver, you know, he did really good on the chorus. You know, like I said on my Heaven or Hell review a few months earlier prior to this video, Don Toliver actually did become my new favorite artist of 2020. You know, I think he is super underrated. He gets very underestimated. You know, he is stuck in the shadow of Travis Scott and Sheck West. You know, I don't think that many people give him a lot of credit, because he is a big, you know, like success to Travis Scott. You know, he's the reason why Travis Scott's, you know, what's it called, the Astroworld album did so great. And you know, same thing for Sheck West. You know, Don Toliver is really underestimated. You know, he's really underappreciated, and this album shows why he has a lot of respect. You know, the fact that Nas decided to have this dude who is like barely starting to blow up on his new album just goes to show you that, you know, Don Toliver is a fucking great artist. My absolute favorite track on this album is the track entitled All Bad, and that's with Anderson .Paak. And let me just say that Anderson .Paak is somebody that I feel gets a lot of respect, not only from a lot of new school artists, but from a lot of OG artists as well. You know, Anderson .Paak just has this like God-given talent. You know, he's worked alongside so many legends, including Dr. Dre, and you know, I know he's worked with Schoolboy a lot, you know, with Eminem. You know, he has just, you know, been just, he has done a lot of work with a lot of like great people, and you know, just to finally see him on a Nas album is fucking great. You know, granted, I don't know if Anderson and Nas ever did a track together. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if they did, because you know, they honestly sound so well together. You know, Anderson .Paak on the fucking chorus is just so great. You know, they just pretty much do this sort of like life ain't all that bad sort of track, even though, you know, shit is getting really crazy right now in this year. But you know, just to like see Anderson and Nas just spread a lot of positivity throughout this whole track, you know, it just it was like really great and awesome to see. And the one really hype track on this album that I really enjoyed was the song entitled Spicy with A$AP Ferg. You know, it's the bonus track of this album, And you know, honestly, if I'm being completely fair, I did not think ASAP Ferg and Nas were gonna sound so well together. You know, I'm not trying to say that ASAP Ferg is trash, because he is a really dope fucking rapper as well. You know, he is, you know, the equivalent to be just as good as ASAP Rocky, but you know, I just felt that his style like wouldn't work well with Nas's style, especially since this whole album felt like super nostalgic, and you know, it was working so well. Like I was like really confident that this was gonna be the one track I did not like on this album, and honestly, I honestly did fucking like it. You know, it was really great. You know, both Nas and A$AP Ferg just do this fucking like hype shit. You know, just a sort of like lyrical rage sort of song. You know, it was just really like fucking great to see. You know, it was like, it was a very like different vibe than what we're used to seeing a lot in hip hop these days, and I just can't believe how fucking well it worked together. So with all that being said, is this album worth it or a waste of time? And I'm here to tell you that this album is absolutely fucking worth it. I honestly enjoyed every track on this album. You know, this album will forever be a reminder of why, you know, the old school will always be the golden era of hip hop, and why a lot of people seem to think why a lot of new school rappers will never be able to live up to that golden era of hip hop. You know, not trying to say that, you know, this current era is trash, because I do think there are a lot of, you know, talented new school rappers that are really like keeping the game alive, and, you know, are really making hip hop like a lot more popular than how it was back then. But for this, like this album will just forever like go down as why the old school was a fucking like great era, and why the OGs will forever be like, will forever be the kings of this hip hop era. So I definitely do recommend this album to each and every one of you. Even if you're not a hip hop fan, I promise you it is something that you will not regret. It is not your typical rap music. It is something really soulful and beautiful. You know, that true shit you can feel. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed my review. Don't forget to like, subscribe, click that button down below, all that good stuff, and don't forget to stay happy.
Time passes by, I'm asking why you match my fly, no cap, no lie. Trophy arm candy, but I'm better without it. It's a dub, my love, but I got